Welcome back to Sunday with Michael Portillo. Today is the first Sunday of Lent, and joining me to discuss how Mardi Gras was marked in Rio de Janeiro is the historian Tony McMahon. Tony, you've just been in Rio then, have you?
I have.
Did you go just for Carnival?
I actually was on a cruise going from Buenos Aires to Rio, and I was giving talks on this cruise ship about the Carnival and the history of Carnival. And I arrived in Rio, and it was a scene of mayhem. I'd never actually been to Rio, I'd never been to the Carnival, and I'd never seen anything like it. I mean, the streets were alive with people.
I'm lucky enough, I think I've been to it 3 times.
Wow.
It is the most extraordinary thing. I was just reflecting, cultural differences. We mark Shrove Tuesday here by making a pancake. I mean, it's almost by definition the flattest thing you can do. And in Rio, what they spend millions on having this enormous party, don't they?
So they have a whole section of the city where they have something called the Sambadrome, which is an arena dedicated to the carnival. So you get your seat, and for hours, from about 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., you just watch this procession of incredible floats. Nothing like the Notting Hill Carnival. This outpaces the Notting Hill Carnival by several fold. The most incredible float I saw actually that night. And by the way, the noise is incredible. Everybody's singing the same song. It's almost hypnotic.
Yes.
This float, which had this huge devil on it that then rose up with horns and everything. It's just a visual sensation.
And by the way, the energy, I mean, we're watching people dancing at the moment.
Yes.
The people on the floats and the people who are walking the processions alongside the floats dance continuously for hours.
Yes.
I've no idea how they don't drop with exhaustion. Just the most extraordinary sustained energy, isn't it?
And I saw some of them leaving afterwards, the Sambadrome afterwards, and they looked drained. They looked like they'd really danced for their lives. And they are, in a sense, dancing for their lives, because these samba schools from very poor areas of Rio, and they are competing for a lot of money. So they are dancing their hearts out, but they're also dancing because they hope to win literally millions of dollars.
And think, too, about the effort that goes into these extraordinary costumes. I mean, we're saying that people are dancing, continuously. Some of them are wearing almost nothing, but by contrast, some of them are wearing a lot. And you've got to imagine, what was the temperature when you were there?
Oh, my gosh. It was about 30, 31, 30, but it's the humidity.
Yeah.
It's very humid in Rio, so I don't know. In fact, I seem to remember that person who's on now. And that head actually swiveling around, because there's incredible visuals which kind of draw on African traditions, but also the kind of Native American traditions, the Tupi people, as they were called in Brazil, but also the Portuguese influence as the former colonial power. So you've got this real mixture of Latin, African, Native American going on, and this music that just boom, 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 boom constantly, and this singing and the movement.
Naturally, there's a connection here with the enslaved people. The enslaved people who picked the sugar crop in Madeira for the Portuguese, who picked the sugar crop for the Portuguese in Brazil as well. What about, tell me about the days of the week, as it were, as we move. What was the Monday called?
So in England, last Monday just gone was called Collop Monday. And if you were a peasant in the Middle Ages, you were expected to get rid of all your meat. I mean, you probably wouldn't have much meat left, because you've just been going through the winter, you've got all this buried meat, salted meat that you've been eating, hoping that you're not going to run out. But whatever you had, you got rid of on Collop Monday. Shrove Tuesday, you got rid of all the dairy products, the milk, the eggs. Right. That's why we have pancakes on Shrove Tuesday. Then Wednesday, Lent starts. You have Ash Wednesday, you put the ash cross. But actually, it's today, the first Sunday of Lent, which used to be called Quadragesima Sunday, much nicer word. This is really when Lent gets underway. You've got to get serious. You start fasting, penance, no joy. Even the monarchy in the Middle Ages, they used to wear black. It was treated as a period of mourning for 40 days.
Quadragesima. In Spanish, Cuaresma, all of these words relate to 40.
Yes.
And 40 is the days that Christ spent in the wilderness.
That's right.
Before Holy Week. Extraordinary.
Tempted by Satan, of course.
Tempted by Satan.
Which is why I think Satan features in the Rio Carnival.
The word that was going out of my head there was carnival.
Yes.
Now, carnival means goodbye to meat, doesn't it? Carne vale, bye-bye meat.
Bye-bye.
And that's because recognising Christ's time in the wilderness, meat was not allowed in the diet in that period.
Yes.
And so you had this enormous celebration before this long period in which you weren't allowed to touch meat.
Yeah, and so you're basically expected to give up meat, all dairy products, sweeties, anything nice. You know, you basically live on bread, vegetables, bit of fruit, and that's it, basically. So you are down to a very basic diet for 40 days, preparing for the crucifixion of our Lord and his resurrection.
Keep talking, if you would.
I'll keep talking. So basically, as you said, it is about emulating Jesus in the desert, his period of fasting before he began his ministry. And, you know, it was a really grim time, frankly, for people in the Middle Ages to have to give up. Not just that, though, you weren't expected to have fun. You weren't expected to have carnal relations. You talk about carn. You weren't expected to have carnal relations either. And anybody who'd been very, very naughty in the run-up to Lent had to turn up to church holding a torch, a blazing torch, as a kind of shame, a mark of shame today. This is when they did it, to show that they'd been especially naughty during Carnival.
Well, how extraordinary. Now, I encourage you to keep talking there because I was doing a little bit of a costume change. The mask I'm wearing actually is a carnival mask from Venice.
Yes.
But I wore it at the carnival in Rio.
Yes.
What do you think?
I think it's very fetching. In fact, I did see a few masks like that. I wasn't as courageous as you. I didn't buy one. I did think they had kind of an Aztec headdress, but this was so hot. I thought, oh my God, if I wear that, I'm going to fall over. But no, I think it's very fetching. I think it actually suits you, if you don't mind me saying so.
Would you go again?
Oh, yes. I mean, to be honest with you, I think people say it's a once-in-a-lifetime experience. But I think, like you said, it's a 3 times in your lifetime experience because each year is completely different. You know, they knock out a samba school that didn't do well enough. So you're always getting new ideas coming through. And they spend the whole year preparing for this. You know, this is why it's so incredible.
Tony McMahon, I'm glad you had such a good time. Thank you for coming and talking to us about the origins of Carnival and the origins of Lent. Well, thank you indeed. Thanks to all my guests who've joined me today. It's always so good that they give up their Sunday to come into the studio. It's been a pleasure to be with you. I will be back next Sunday, I'm pleased to say. But now, do please stay tuned because the next programme is The Weekend with Dawn Neeson, and you wouldn't want to miss that.